Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Alright, so it's now Friday. We're going to have a little fun with this episode. We have fun with every episode, I think. But nonetheless, today we're going to be talking about some coaches who have taken some risks coming into this season. Okay? Coaches I have in mind for this, alright, are the coaches of the Miami Dolphins, New York Giants, and the Kansas City Chiefs. All are taking different risks for different reasons, and the outcomes of these, the consequences of these risk taken are different. Okay, for the Dolphins, Adam Gase. All right, we're going to do each coach for the first three segments, and then for the fourth segment, we'll talk about anything else going on in the world of football, as we always do. But nonetheless, like I said, okay, Adam Gase started out with Miami in 2016. Makes the playoffs, they go 10-6. All right, losing the wild card round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. No Ryan Tannehill in that game because he blew out his knee, I think, weeks before that against the Cardinals. I think it was like week 13 or week 14, something like that. Yeah, week 13, I think. Week 13, yeah. Okay. So, Tannehill's trying to heal up. Training camp comes. He tears his knee again, fully this time. And it's basically a down year for Miami where they go 6-10 with Jay Cutler and Matt Moore as their off and on starting quarterbacks. Okay. Now you got Gase coming into his third year. Stephen Ross, the Miami Dolphins owner, doesn't seem like he's ready to wait too long for them to start winning. Okay, and I assume that if Adam Gase misses out on playoffs this season and Miami looks real disappointing, he loses out on a job. All right. Quarterback has been a big question on that team since Dan Marino retired. And Ryan Tannehill's been a big question on that team since he came into the league as to whether or not he is their future. All right. Adam Gase could have took a quarterback this year in the draft and saved himself a couple of years as far as job security. He chose not to, so he's taking a risk that way by pretty much leaning on Ryan Tannehill to get it done for them this season. Because if not, like I said, he could be as good as gone. As far as the Giants go and their little quarterback situation, this isn't one where Pat Schurmur's job security is on the line, but more so, the Giants could be really bad in the near future if this whole Eli thing doesn't work out. Okay, and if Davis Webb isn't the guy that maybe they're expecting him to be. All right. And even then, so I mean, you're still taking a risk because let's say the Giants are really good. You're not going to have a high draft pick to get a quarterback for him once he's done. All right. So that's the risk there we'll be talking about. And then for the Chiefs, the risk there is that you've been a consistent playoff team. Okay, yes, you've lacked playoff success. But nonetheless, you're going from a guy who's consistently gotten you there to a guy who only played one game last season. I could care less what scouts think of him. That's what it is. You're going from a guy who's taking you to the playoffs year after year to a guy who, like I said, he was just a rookie last season who only played one game. Now you're going to make him the full-time starting quarterback week one. We'll see how that works out for the Chiefs. Okay, and the risk there is that, like I said, you make the playoffs year after year. Now you got a new guy. You might be out of the playoffs for the next couple of years waiting for him to develop. All right. So like I said, that's the risk in it all there. So that's, like I said, basically going to be today's show. We're going to be doing that for the first three segments. All right. And let's let's talk about Adam Gase first, okay? Me personally, I really like Adam Gase. All right. I really think that he's a good coach, and he's a no-nonsense type of guy. People will hammer him for getting rid of guys like Landry, Ajayi, cutting Sue, and all that. But nonetheless, I see the rationale in those moves, all right? Him and Ajayi always seem to get into it, all right? It seems that Ajayi, well, according to reports, all right, wasn't the greatest worker. All right. I'm not sure how true that is. I mean, Ajayi looked pretty good with the Eagles, so I'm sure some of it was mumbo-jumbo, but it is a fact that him and Gase necessarily didn't really see eye to eye. Okay, as far as I report him not being the best worker, that's just a report that I saw. I can't tell you whether or not it's true. Okay. You got rid of him. You trade Landry because you tell him he's not worth what he wants, and you let go of Sue because you're paying him absurd amounts of money, and it's not affecting wins and losses. Okay. And now you've added guys like Danny Amendola who have struggled during the regular season but excelled in the playoffs, a place that you haven't really been in over the course of time, last couple of decades. Okay. You're bringing Albert Wilson also. You know I'm bringing in a replacement for Ndamukong Suh. You say, you know what, we're going to stick with our younger guys. And as far as J.J., I actually do think their running back situation's a lot better than what it was before. Okay? But basically, like I said, Gase is taking a risk here because I don't think there's much time left for him to develop a team. Okay? Like I said, I think Stephen Ross wants his team to start winning. I think he wants them to start winning now. NFL coaches, once they get hired, you got about a 3-year period. Okay? During that 3-year period, the first 2 years are more so spent developing and building the team. The third year is the year where you show your owner, okay, this is what we've been building towards. This is where we're going to go. Okay? Meaning the third year is the year you make the playoffs. Third year is the year you barely miss out on the playoffs, but nonetheless, you know you'll be in there you'll be in there next year. Okay? And if you don't do well or show promise in that third year or show the direction, then more times than not, you're out. All right? And I think this is that year for Adam Gase. Okay? Adam Gase has been building his team. You don't get rid of J.J., Jarvis Landry, and Ndamukong Suh if it's not your team. All right. So he's been trying to build his team for the first couple of years. His first year, he made the playoffs. Okay? Like I said, second year was a bit of a rough one since you got Jay Cutler out there. And Jay Cutler, I'll tell you this, is one of the most confusing quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life. I mean, how a guy can go from looking like a top 5 quarterback to the worst quarterback in the league is beyond me. All right? But nonetheless, like I said, okay, they got to get it done this season. I'm not saying they got to make the playoffs, but they go 8-8. I could see Adam Gase getting the axe. I could see him getting fired. Okay, I think 9-7 is what this team needs in order for him to keep his job going forward. Because over in Baltimore, like I said, they've missed the playoffs the last 3 years. Okay, this is a team who won the Super Bowl back in 2012. You missed the playoffs the last 3 years. Owner talking about how he's thinking of getting rid of John Harbaugh, or at least it crossed his mind. Harbaugh says, forget that. This is Joe's fault. I'm going to go draft a quarterback. All right? John Harbaugh drafting Lamar Jackson gives him 2 more years of job security this year and the next. This year, Joe Flacco stinks it up. I told you, we're going to bench him, develop our guy. We'll have RG3 lead it the rest of the way, see what happens. Next season, we'll see how Lamar Jackson does. Lamar Jackson doesn't get it going next season, then yeah, Harbaugh's probably done. Or RG3 for that matter. Okay. But nonetheless, yeah, he's definitely got 2 years. Gase, if he were to trade up, take a quarterback, maybe if he were to even take Lamar Jackson with her 11th pick, he would have had this year and next year for sure as far as job security. He would have guaranteed himself 2 more years. All right. But since he didn't take a quarterback, he's telling Stephen Ross, this is my team. I like this team. We're going to live and die with Ryan Tannehill as our quarterback. You're telling Ross, this is the team I like. All right. If we don't succeed, then it's on me. Okay. That's basically all it is right there. And I mean, Ryan Tannehill has had years where he came close to the. Let's take a look at Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback as far as his year-by-year records. Okay, obviously records are a team stat too, but nonetheless, let's look at it. So he came into the league in 2012. 2013, 2014 were both years where they were a game away from making the playoffs. Okay? They were both years where the last two games, all they had to do was win one and they're in, and they failed to do that. All right? In those 2 years, Tannehill threw for 24 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. 2014, the second year, they go 8-8. He throws for 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, which I would say is probably the best year of his career so far, except for 2016, where he only played 13 games, threw for 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Probably would have had similar numbers compared to 2014. All right. Like I said, 2016, the only year where Tannehill's really shown anything, like to get a team to the playoffs, and even then he got hurt. All right. So like I said, Gase is really jumping out on a limb here, expecting Tannehill to be the one that saves his job. But we'll see if he could do it. I mean, Tannehill's shown flashes of what he could be. He's also shown flashes of what he can't be. So who knows? But nonetheless, like I said, that's a way that Adam Gase is taking a risk there. Pretty much putting all his eggs in the basket here. Tannehill's my guy. So we'll see if it ends up working out for him. But next up, we're going to be talking about the Giants, talking about the fact that they didn't take a quarterback. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. First segment, we talked about the Miami Dolphins, talked about Adam Gase. Today's show is pretty much just about coaches who are taking risks going into this season. All right, Adam Gase is definitely one. I mean, you got to be a brave man to say, yeah, Ryan Tannehill's my guy, and we're living and dying by him. I mean, I wouldn't do it personally. I'd get some insurance in drafting a quarterback, but it's what Adam Gase wants, I guess. Okay, so we talked about that. And now we move on over to New York. Not the Jets, the Giants. Okay. So the Giants had the number 2 pick in the draft this season. All right. Honestly, the number 2 pick, I feel like that's probably the best pick to have in the first round because, I mean, you don't have the pressure of having to take a certain guy with a number 1 pick because he's the consensus guy. You get pretty much your choice at who you want. Okay? And there's nothing better than it. Let me see if I could check past number 2 overall picks in the NFL draft. Let's see if they got that. Okay? Because that's going to help out a lot. So let's see if they got some little fancy thing for that. Let's see. History all-time number 2 players. All right. Let's see. Looking at the past 3. All been quarterbacks. Mitch Trubisky, Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota. Okay, then you have Greg Robinson, Luke Jokel. Then RG3, Von Miller, Dominican Sue, Jason Smith, Chris Long, Megatron, Calvin Johnson, Reggie Bush, Ronnie Brown, Robert Gallery, Charles Rogers, Julius Peppers, Leonard Davis, LeVar Arrington, Donovan McNabb, Ryan Leaf, Rick Muir. All right, I'm looking at the quarterbacks now. So I'm not going to go all the way back into the 80s, but nonetheless, looking at the last 5 quarterbacks taken with the number 2 pick. Trubisky, Wentz, Mariota, RG3, that's 4. And then the quarterback before him was Donovan McNabb. I'd say all 5 of them are going to turn out well. Well, RG3, he was going to, if not for his injuries. Mitch Trubisky, I really like him. I think he's going to be a fine quarterback for the Bears. Okay, and Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota. I think we could all assume that they're going to be good quarterbacks. They're going to be in the league for quite some time going forward. Okay. And obviously, like I said, those number 2 picks as far as quarterbacks are going to do pretty well. I figured that maybe if you're the Giants, you take a quarterback in this past draft. Okay, because of the fact that Eli's only got 2 more years, this year and the next. After that, what exactly is the Giants' plan? What is Pat Schurmur's plan? Okay. And that's what I'm most curious about. Because you take Saquon Barkley with the number 2 pick. I don't hate that pick at all. Alright, I think that Saquon Barkley is going to be a fine player, and I probably think that was the safest pick. But there's the point where, yeah, you drafted Kyle Lauletta this season. Alright, I think they took him, in the 5th, 4th round, something like that? Somewhere in those middle rounds. Okay, you got Davis Webb. Are those the 2 guys? Well, one of them, do you feel comfortable with one of them taking over for Eli Manning once he's done in 2 years? Because right now, Eli's 37. So, yeah, after these 2 years, he's gone. All right, and let's see if he's going to be turning 38 during the season. Okay, because that always tends to help. Born in January, so no, he'll only be 38 if they make the playoffs. All right. Well, he'll be 38 either way, but he'll be 38. Wow, if they make the playoffs, he'll be 38 at that time. To make it more clear. Okay, but like I said, you got Eli, Lauletta, and Davis Webb. Eli, I'm comfortable with being the quarterback of that team the next 2 years. Okay. Davis Webb, taking over for him after? Not necessarily. Kyle Lauletta, we haven't seen really too much at all. Alright. Well, I mean, unless you watched him in college. Obviously in the NFL, you haven't seen him at all. And I highly doubt too many people have ever watched Richmond play. Okay. So, honestly, we have no clue about Kyle Lauletta because no one's ever watched a Richmond college football game in their life. Alright. But nonetheless, the risk here is that you have no real backup, no real succession plan. Okay? Like, sure, I'm sure they'd like for Davis Webb or Kyle Lauletta to be the guy after Eli, but that's not necessarily a set-in-stone type of plan. Okay? Not at all. And I think that the Giants are going to be pretty decent in the next 2 years with Eli. You got Evan Ingram, you got him in running back in Saquon Barkley, and you got Odell Beckham Jr. and Sterling Shepard. Okay. Real solid team there, and I think your defense is going to do just fine with the former defensive coordinator for the Cardinals being there. Okay. But like I said, you're going to be good for the first couple of years, for the next 2 years, I think. But after that, what happens? Let's say that after Eli's second season, they go 11-5, make the playoffs, go on a little run, whatever. They don't got to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. Then Eli says, you know what, I'm retiring. Okay. What do you do then? You're picking in the 20s. All right. Usually, the top quarterbacks go in the top 10. Obviously. Are you going to try and trade up? That's a possibility. All right. But even then, I mean, I figured that this season would have been a good year to pick a quarterback because you get a guy who gets to sit behind Eli Manning for 2 years. A guy who doesn't even have to play. All right. I hate doing this, but there's other ways to get around the running back position now. There simply is. Okay, the Packers have been doing it since, what was it, Amon Green retired? Okay? And the Seahawks have been doing it since Marshawn Lynch left them. All right. And they've been fine. I'd say that the Seahawks' problems with them not making the playoffs more so their defense rather than their running back position. Okay, and as for the Packers, they haven't necessarily missed a beat with Amon Green being gone. As long as he is. He left in 2009. They haven't had a solid running back then since then. Eddie Lacy maybe could have been the guy. He didn't work out. Okay, they've been going through James Starks. You got Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. All right, with Jones being suspended for the first 2 games of the season. Okay. And actually, 2006 was not exactly Green's last year. That was 2009, but 2006 was the last year Green actually got meaningful snaps. So since then. Okay. And if you're the Giants, I mean, you brought in Jonathan Stewart. You got Wayne Gallman still. Okay. And I just think that maybe they would have been better suited off with a quarterback. Because I'm telling you this much, I am not a believer in Davis Webb. And Richmond hasn't necessarily pumped out solid NFL talent. Okay. So like I said, the risk being taken here is that you could be really good for the next 2 years. After that, you could end up being really bad. Okay. But I mean, Pat Schurmur has shown that he could work with quarterbacks. I mean, look at last year with Case Keenum. Case Keenum did absolutely nothing in the NFL before last season. Last season he comes in with Pat Schurmur. They go to the NFC Championship game. All right, with Schurmur being the offensive coordinator. I mean, it is possible that Davis Webb or Kyle Lauletta become the future quarterbacks, or one of them becomes the future quarterback that the Giants are anticipating in them becoming. But like I said, it's not necessarily the best move to make. All right. Like I said, I have no problem with it. I mean, mainly because I'm not a Giants fan, and this isn't my job to care about the Giants. But like I said, I mean, you make a couple of playoff runs the next couple of years after Eli, what do you got? That's all I'm saying. They probably should have prepared. Like, the number 2 pick was the best position they probably would have. They'll be in for the next couple of years to get a quarterback, a good one. All right. So I mean, this isn't something that we're necessarily going to be looking back at within the next couple of years. But this is going to be more so a future type of thing. Oh, what if the Giants would have took Josh Rosen? Look what he's doing with the Cardinals. What if they would have took Darnold? Look what he's doing with the Jets. What if they would have took Allen? Look at what he's doing with the Bills. Where I don't picture myself saying that one really ever, but nonetheless, you get the point. Okay, what if they would have did this? What if they would have did that? It's all possibilities. Okay, it's just a matter of whether or not the Giants are going to feel the heat of those possibilities that they missed out on. That remains to be seen. Okay, but the risk is you might not necessarily be as good as you are now 3 years from now. All right, so we'll see what ends up happening, but team's not taking quarterbacks, man. Taking risks. So we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about good old Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, we've talked about Adam Gase. We've talked about the Giants putting their faith in their quarterbacks. Well, Adam Gase put his faith in his. Pat Schurmur and co. deciding we don't need a quarterback just yet. All right, both risky moves to take. All right. And then there's this team down in Kansas City. All right. Where they've been making the playoffs the last few years. Okay. Haven't necessarily had the greatest playoff success. But nonetheless, when you're making the playoffs year after year, you tend to have a pretty decent team, and you tend to need to add a couple of pieces here, a couple of pieces there to get over the hump. Okay. And the Chiefs figured that, yeah, why don't we just get rid of the most important position on our team and bring in a new guy? All right. And that's what they did. I mean, looking at their playoff history last year, they lost in the wild card round in a game that they should have won. All right, I could have won that game. You lose to the Steelers in 2016. 2015, you did beat the Texans 30-0. You did lose to the Patriots after that, 27-20. 2013, you make the playoffs. And then 2010, you made the playoffs. But 2013 was the first year you made the playoffs with Alex Smith. Okay. So, since 2013, they've only missed out on the playoffs once. And that was in 2014. Okay. And Andy Reid felt it was, well, Andy Reid and that whole team, whole front office, I should say, felt it was the right decision to get rid of the guy that has been taking them to the playoffs year after year and replace him with someone who was a rookie last season and only played one game. All right. That's a real bold risk that they're taking. That kind of sounds redundant. Bold and risk. Isn't it kind of one and the same? You're being bold if you're taking a risk. I don't know. We learn something new every day. Alright. But nonetheless, it is a risk to take. Okay. I will say this, though. Andy Reid does tend to work well with quarterbacks. I've never really understood why, but nonetheless, every quarterback this guy has really worked with has had some type of success. Whether it was them getting a decent contract, whether it was them just becoming a great quarterback, or whatnot. Okay, even guys like Kevin Kolb were able to benefit from Andy Reid. Okay. And it's just a point where maybe Andy Reid feels he could do the same with Patrick Mahomes. And, I mean, Mahomes is the prototypical quarterback. All right. Tall, arm strength. That's basically it right there, and accurate. Okay. If you're tall and you got a rocket arm, you're a first-round pick. Okay? And it's crazy how that works. That's literally what it is. That's literally what had Josh Allen go number 7 to the Bills. Josh Allen with Wyoming never really won anything, and his stats weren't out of this world type of numbers. But you know what? Josh Allen's about 6'5", 6'7", and he's got a cannon of an arm. Okay? So then, what does that get you? The 7th pick in the draft. They got Mahomes, the 10th pick in the draft. They got Mahomes getting drafted where you had a guy already taking you to the playoffs. And that's just crazy how the NFL does that, okay? Now that I think about it. The only reason why Alex Smith is out of there is because the Chiefs saw an opportunity to take a guy with upside who was tall and had a rocket arm. All right? And I think that's the fast way of getting to the NFL. Too bad I'm only about 5'5", 5'6". All right, could have had a child who was about maybe 6'5", had him hit the gym every day. NFL star right there, or at least first round pick. All right. But nonetheless, like I said, we all know how they're taking a risk, the Chiefs. You're risking years and years and years of playoffs to start a guy who hasn't really taken a meaningful snap in the NFL. And don't give me that, he played last year against the Chargers or whatever. I could care less about a Week 17 game where guys like me are playing. All right. And obviously, I'm over-exaggerating there. Okay, I don't take it so serious. But nonetheless, yes, that Week 17 game last season, Week 16 doesn't even matter to me. It means nothing. Okay. So now we're going to see Mahomes coming into the season. What can you do? Okay, what can you do different from Alex? What can you do better? All right, and I'm not sure. I mean, obviously he's probably got the stronger arm than Alex Smith. He's got the height on Alex Smith, I'm assuming. But nonetheless, is he smarter than Alex Smith? Alex Smith was never going to lose you a game. Okay? And with Mahomes, it's just a matter of if Mahomes can stay accurate and not turn the ball over, then this Chiefs team can make the playoffs. But of course, I mean, when have we... Because Mahomes is basically a rookie quarterback coming into this season, right? He's basically Ben Simmons. Of course, Mahomes did get a game under his belt, but nonetheless, that's just that game under his belt is basically no better than Simmons playing preseason last year. Okay? Both guys basically redshirted in their first year. Now, we see how they do. Simmons looking like an all-time talent. Mahomes remains to be seen. All right. And let's look at their schedule and see what exactly the Chiefs are up against this season. You get the Chargers in LA week 1. That's going to be difficult. All right. You get the Steelers week 2 in Pittsburgh. That's going to be difficult. You got San Francisco week 3 at home. Okay. That's a winnable game. Then you get the Broncos on the road. That's going to be difficult, especially considering it's a rivalry divisional game. Then you got the Jags, best defense in the league. Then you got the Patriots, best team in the league. Okay? Let's see, who do they have again after New England? After New England, they got the Bengals. That's winnable. Broncos, that's going to be winnable since it's at home. Then you're playing in Cleveland. That's going to be a bit of a tough one considering the fact that Cleveland's good. You got the Cardinals, tough team. Rams, best team on paper right now. Raiders in Oakland, divisional game, going to be tough. Ravens, that's a winnable one. Chargers are going to be real good, so sweeping them is going to be tough. You got to play in Seattle. All right. If Seattle's in the playoff hunt, then that's going to be a tough game, considering the fact it's going to be a Sunday night one, I believe. It's on December 23rd. Let's see. December 23rd on a Sunday this year? December 23rd is on a Sunday this year. All right. So, yeah, you got a Sunday night game against the Seahawks. Like I said, they're in playoff contention. It's going to be extremely difficult to win there. And then you got the Raiders last week of the season at home. All right. They got a tough schedule. Let's see how many teams made the playoffs from their schedule. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 teams on their schedule made the playoffs. All right. Chargers are going to be a team who could be a playoff team this season. I'd be shocked if they weren't. Denver's going to be a whole lot better. The Raiders still have no clue about them. But nonetheless, I mean, what is the Chiefs' goal for this season? Okay. Is your main goal to get into the playoffs? Or is it to check the progression of a Patrick Mahomes and see what exactly you got going forward? All right. I mean, even if they do make the playoffs, do we expect them to do anything? No. But I mean, I will say this. I'd say I'm more comfortable with the Chiefs situation than I am with Miami's or the Giants, because you got Tyreek Hill, you got Travis Kelce, you got Kareem Hunt. You got playmakers at every athletic, tough position. I don't want to slight the offensive lineman here. You got playmakers at receiver, tight end, and running back. That's a great thing to have. Defense, not necessarily great, not necessarily bad. Middle of the pack. Going to help you some days, going to go against you another. All right. So as far as the offense, I mean, Mahomes has weapons and he's got guys who can help him. All right. So, I mean, it could work out. Like I said, Andy Reid's always worked well with quarterbacks. Maybe this is just the next one in a long line of them. I mean, you have Alex Smith, who was struggling to make the playoffs with the 49ers, comes to Kansas City. This is the best of his career. All right? The best years of his career was with Kansas City. Okay. So we'll see how it all works out. Like I said, I mean, all three of these teams are taking risks here in their own different way. Gase is more so taking a risk on his job security. The Giants taking a risk where after Eli, what's the plan? And then here the risk is you've been making the playoffs years. Okay? 4 out of the last 5 years, 3 out of the last 4 years. Can't remember exactly what I said. And you ditch the guy who's been taking you there for a rookie. For a second-year player who didn't play the year before. All right? That's a risk. So we'll see how it ends up going down, but nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about anything that crosses my mind as far as football or talking about any other news or anything like that. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked about Adam Gase, we've talked about Pat Schurmur, we've talked about Andy Reid. What do they have in common? Taking risks at the quarterback position. One is sticking with the guy he's got, decided not to draft one. Another is seemingly hoping that either Davis Webb or Kyle Luetta are the guys. And the third is getting rid of a guy who's been taking them to the playoffs or a guy who was a rookie last season and didn't even play. All right. You understand the risk being taken at each, right? I hope you do. Okay, but nonetheless, all right. Now we talk about whatever else is going on in the world of football. No real headlines coming out. Nothing big right now. Okay? So much quiet time in the NFL. We got training camp coming up at the end of July. Counting down the days. Alright. But nonetheless, I mean, I saw that Marquise Goodwin bought his mom and his sister a house. Finally, some good news out of the NFL after a period where we had Jameis Winston getting suspended and a bunch of other guys getting suspended. Let's see, Leonard Fournette paid the tuition of an LSU student. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of money there for that student to pay, so good for Leonard Fournette paying that. But nonetheless, I mean, well, Eli Manning selling his Super Bowl 47 helmet up for auction. Eli Manning and auctions don't necessarily go together, but we'll see if this one ends up working out. All right. But nonetheless, like I said, I mean, there's not really much else going on in the NFL right now. It's just a point of you just wait and you hope none of the guys in your team are out here getting hurt or anything like that. All right. Training camp's always a scary time just because of the fact that there always is a couple of training camp injuries. All right. You just hope that the big name player that ends up getting hurt in training camp isn't a guy who belongs to your team. Okay. I don't know, it's probably bad for me to talk about injuries or anything like that, but it seemingly happens every year. Okay, every year in training camp, there's always that one player who loses out their season because of an injury. Okay. Let me see, do they got a list for that? Past training camp Because, like I said, there's always one big name player. I think last year was Allen Robinson. Okay. But I don't think they have that type of injury list there. Okay. So like I said, I mean, what are we looking forward to for this upcoming NFL season? All right. What are we expecting here? Like, what do we expect out of the Patriots? Go to another Super Bowl? I mean, the last 2 years, they've showed up. Okay. I mean, is it more crazy to see them not in the Super Bowl, or is it crazy to see them in there again for a third time? And if they make it for a third time, what does this say exactly about the AFC? I get the whole Tom Brady's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time and all that, but I mean, come on now. The dude's 41 years old. What are they doing wrong? Talking about the other teams of the AFC. Why is it that this guy continues to dominate where no person at that age has dominated like that? Okay? Honestly. All right. I mean, another story. The Packers even going to get into the playoffs this season? All right? Because there's only 2 spots open for them. All right? I mean, the Vikings are the best team in that division. And it's not necessarily close. A better defense and a better offense. The only thing that the Packers beat the Vikings at is at quarterback. Literally everything else favors the Vikings. Receiving corps, I'll take Thielen, Diggs, and Rudolph over Graham, Cobb, and Adams. Yes, I would. All right. Nonetheless, I mean, yeah, it's not a guarantee that the Packers end up making the playoffs this season. I mean, you're going to have the Vikings winning the division, I feel. And then you got to compete for 2 spots where you're probably going to have to compete with the Lions. All right. The entire NFC East. Well, 3 out of the 4 NFC East teams. Okay. NFC South, I mean, they put 3 teams in the playoffs last season. And then in the NFC West, you got the Cardinals who went 8-8 last year with, I mean, just hot garbage at quarterback. 49ers got better. I don't see them making the playoffs, though. And I'm sure the Rams are going to win that division. So, I mean, you got to worry about the Cardinals in the NFC West. All right. It's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing for the Packers to do. Okay. And where do we regard as far as Aaron Rodgers all-time amongst quarterbacks? All right. Is all Aaron Rodgers lacking is some accolades, some Super Bowl wins? He's already got 1. If he were to get 2, does that put him top 5? All right. Aaron Rodgers for me is like a modern-day Dan Marino as far as just pure talent. The only difference between them is that Rodgers got a Super Bowl. Okay. I mean, imagine watching Dan Marino in this era, too. That'd be ridiculous. All right, was basically playing on these quarterbacks played now back in the 80s where it was just all defense, defense, defense. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, Rodgers is going to be up there. Okay. I think it's time that we start giving Rodgers his respect, too. No more of this, oh yeah, he's the most talented quarterback. No, he's an all-time great quarterback. All right. He truly is. But, of course, people aren't ready to give that to him because he doesn't have enough Super Bowl wins. All right, because let me tell you, as far as what they could do on the field, Rodgers can do more than Brady, and he can do it better. All right, people don't want to admit that because they're so infatuated with the whole rings conversation, but you can't definitively tell me that Tom Brady, okay, as far as quarterback skills go, forget the wins, forget the Super Bowls, is a better, more talented quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. That's just simply not the truth. Okay? I'm not saying that all-time or whatever, Rodgers is better than Brady. I'm just talking about pure talent here. Okay, like I said, forget the wins and losses for a second. I know that's all you and Kobe fans got left, is the rings conversation. Okay? But nonetheless, Rodgers by far is the more talented quarterback. All right. I mean, like I said, Packers could go from not making the playoffs this season to winning the Super Bowl this season. Like, that's the little in-between area. All right. Like, it's ridiculous how this team could go out and win a Super Bowl, or they could just simply miss out on the playoffs and be done with it. All right. But nonetheless, we'll see there. Let's see any other big storylines going on. Looking forward to the season. I mean, which rookie quarterback's going to be starting first or going to be playing first? That's a fun one to play right there. I'm assuming that it's going to be Josh McCown or Teddy Bridgewater as the starter for the Jets week 1. And I'm assuming that whoever isn't the starter week 1 is going to be the backup. You expect to see Sam Darnold this season? Not really. All right. The only quarterback I could really see playing this season is probably Josh Rosen. Maybe Josh Allen. But if they throw Josh Allen out there, then that's borderline cruel. Josh Allen, his career is going to be over if he's out there with that offense. All right. But nonetheless, I can see Josh Rosen playing because of the fact that Sam Bradford's not very durable. Mike Glennon isn't necessarily a good quarterback. All right. Josh Rosen, I think, is the most pro-ready quarterback, so that's why I can see him going. Like I said, Bradford could be hurt within the first 4 games of the season. All right. So it could be Josh Rosen time early, but nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Today we talked about Adam Gase, Pat Schurmur, and Andy Reid. Talked about the risks they're taking among the quarterback positions. And then for this segment, talked about a whole bunch of things about the NFL. So thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back on Monday, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.